Welcome to Mad About Money. I'm Maddy Alexander-Grout, and this is the podcast where we talk to interesting people all about their interesting money stories. I am joined by the lovely Cheryl, and I am like sat really high up, so she looks really small, but she's actually normal sized. I can guarantee that. And Cheryl is a leadership consultant, but she also is an ex-consumer complaints person, an ex-bank person, so she's got loads of experience with money. So we're going to be talking to her a little bit about her journey today. Cheryl, lovely to have you. Would you like to tell our listeners just a little bit about you to get started?
Yeah, and thank you for having me in the first place, because it was actually me that reached out to you and said I would like to do this. And I don't know if you even remember how, I think it was before Christmas. The reason I reached out to you is because, and the reason why I want to do this is because often I think with financial situations, and I will go on to a bit about me, you almost have to speak the language of the
Yeah.
bank. And I found that because I know it, because I used to be it, I can affect quite a lot of change. And when my friends ring me, I'll say this word, say that to them. And if you don't know it, you can actually get into quite a pickle and you can become more vulnerable with financial situations. So that's why I reached out to you. I don't know if you remember me talking about that.
I do, I do. I remember it well.
I was like, I want to tell people this. But who am I? So my background, my first ever job was a bank manager. My mum worked in banking. It was an accidental job. I didn't care about being a bank manager. I just got a job. Um, I realised actually how powerful money is from a very early age because of that. Because of I met so many people, and my natural curiosity is wanting to talk to people. So I spoke to people from all different aspects of financial services. Was just completely curious and nosy. You know, I call it curious. Some people might call it nosy
Yeah,
about what
there's a
money
there's a
does for.
fine line.
And you're like going, what about this? But I was just interested in how we turn something so powerful, and also it could be quite toxic as well, you know. So I was just interested in the sort of power of money. Um, and then I stayed in financial services pretty much all my career. I've worked for accountancies, I've worked for the Big Four, I've worked for law firms as well, but always been around financial transactions. And significantly, I worked for the Financial Ombudsman Service as well, where we dealt with lots of incoming consumer complaints. And it was almost like we were the balance in between the business and the consumer.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's, you know, just to tell you something else about me is my background is I did a degree in literature, so I love the power of words and communication. One of the things that I found when I was at the Ombudsman was the power of our words. And this is why I also, like I say, why I wanted to talk to us as well. Because if you know the words to use, and you speak the same language as your audience or your whoever it is, you're more likely to get heard. And I think we need to be heard when it comes to money. We need to speak
Oh,
the same language.
oh my God, yes, we so do. And at the moment, I am tirelessly campaigning for the UK to keep cash. I mean, not very many people are listening to me, but I think it's super important. I think we should shout when we have ideas about money and make it more accessible for people, so that they can actually learn something.
You're
And
bringing it
the
up
gov.
as well, aren't you?
Yes,
Sorry
I
that
am.
I'm
I
now
am.
doing this too, because
Yes.
doing that, by the way, when I saw you do that post about the children's book that you were bringing out, it blew my mind because I've been trying to get into more schools, and all the time that I was a bank manager as well, I was doing the same, offering for free to go in and speak to children about money, because we've got this generational trauma around
Yeah.
money. So we pass that on. If your parents have told you that money is a problem, it's hard to come by, or you're wasteful, we don't have enough money for that, and don't get me wrong, I don't think we should waste money either, but there's a way of communicating that so we don't wag a finger and shame a child and then become terrified of it.
Yeah.
And that's our problem. And then we pass that on over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've always been, especially when I've worked so much on my money mindset and how I talk to myself about money. Saying we can't afford that is just out of the question. So if it's something that actually we don't want to spend money on, it's just not in our budget right now. The kids understand, they're 5 and 8. They understand what a budget is. They understand. I mean, I talk to my kids so much about money that when I gave my 8-year-old the money book to read, he was like, "Yeah, I get it, Mum. I get it." And then my 5-year-old was like, "I like the pictures, Mummy. They're really pretty." And I was like, "Great," because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to aim it at kind of like between 5 and 9-year-olds. So like the writing is a bit more complex, but the pictures are younger, so it can kind of grow with them as they grow. Because I remember having books when I was a child that I would read over and over and over again, just because I liked the pictures when I was younger. And then when I started to actually understand what the words meant, I'd read them even more. And that was kind of my thought process behind how to do it. Because I was like, how do I target it so it's not just aimed at 5-year-olds or not just aimed at 9-year-olds, you know? So
Really
it's been
important.
hard work though.
Oh, kind of, it's nothing, and if it's worth it, then it probably will challenge you, but it'll be worth it.
I
And
hope
it'll
so.
pay dividends, even a financial term there, pay dividends in the long term for everybody. We need to reach
Absolutely.
children. I don't, I don't have biological children, but I have two stepchildren. And my stepdaughter is 10 and my stepson is 12. And I have a niece who's 10 as well, and a nephew who's 2.5, who you saw a video of earlier.
Super cute.
He's lovely. But with my so the children in my world, I constantly try and talk to them about money and about, so you were talking about saying we can't afford that. We don't say those words either. And we use words like that's not our priority right now. That's not what we
Yeah.
spend our money on. What we're choosing to spend our money on is this instead, and this is why. And we, with my stepson, we started talking about like compound interest. And if
Mm,
we put them money in a like a, not a lot of money, but it's like something like a 5 a week we just put in, and it builds up. And my stepdaughter is a massive saver, so she's got the Go Henry app. She looks at it and she's like, ooh, because she can see it building up. She's tight, she won't spend a penny. She'll spend your money, but she won't spend hers. And then you say to her,
oh,
yeah,
yeah.
and you'll say, well, is it worth you spending your money on this? And she's like, no. Then it's not
No.
worth spending our money on it then, babes. That's how it goes.
Love that.
Yeah,
Love that.
but
Yeah.
then
In fact, I should send you the book actually before we send us the printers so you can have have
I
a
would
little
love
eye
it.
over it.
I would love it. Well, look, Luke, my stepson, he's a spendthrift, and he spends, just spends, 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 and we're trying to get him to think a bit more. And I said, there's nothing wrong with spending money. That's not a problem, because money's meant to flow in and out and pay people for services, but be conscious of it. Know what you're spending your money on. But
It's that
he's
word. It's that word. And I don't know why I've got a
conscious.
pen and I'm waggling a pen at you, but it's
I'll
because
waggle mine.
I'm having a fiddle with it.
Yeah.
But that is my favorite word when it comes to money. It's conscious. That's like
Everything.
whatever we do, as long as it's conscious, then we should be in control.
Intentional. I like that's, and I don't know if you see it on my,
Intentional is great.
yeah.
Yeah,
Because I
conscious, intentional,
just know
planned.
what you're doing, make a decision, and measure. I'm a risk manager by trade, so in all my leadership work I had to calculate risks, I had to plot them. So everything I do, I risk manage like that, as my head's going, and I'm teaching them to do that as well. So if you buy this, what's the immediate kickback you'll get from it? So he loves Lego, so you're going to buy Lego, you've got millions of Lego that you've not even finished doing. So let's talk this through, and we go through it and we risk assess it, and then at the end of it, then I go, how do you feel? I still want it. Okay. And I've also started talking to him about, what about selling some of your stuff? So selling it, to somebody else, or gifting it to somebody else, or doing,
Yeah.
constantly adding value. But yeah, children are where, we've gone a bit off but children are, for me, incredibly important. And like I say, where I was going to go with this with Luke is we're teaching him about interest. So if he forgets his bank card and he wants to buy something, and we just joke with this, we don't actually do, we don't charge him interest, but we'll say, look, we'll pay that because you've not brought your card with you. But if you were an adult and you were in the real world, so when you're grown up, we'd be charging you for this lend. So yes,
Yeah.
we'll lend you the money, the £100 to go and do whatever. But when you pay us back this afternoon, we want £105.
Mm,
And he's like, what? Why would you do that? Well, we wouldn't. But when you're a grown up, that's how it works. So
yeah.
you've got to start either putting money, which at some point you will, and there's nothing wrong with lending money. It's just you've got to work out what it is you're buying. So if you're buying a house or you're buying a whatever, there's a kickback from it. You get something from it. So
Yeah.
at 12, we're trying to teach them, and my stepdaughter, the cost of not understanding money. It will cost you.
And that's the thing. I mean, I didn't understand money and I look back at where my spending problems came from, and I think they actually stemmed from when I was a teenager, when it was like the 90s, and kind of we were like, oh, what are you doing at the
Time ever.
weekend? Going to town. Like we'd just go to town every single weekend. Just
That was life.
it was life. There was nothing else. We
It
would
was
just
the
go to
best life.
town.
I loved it. It cost a
And
lot,
we'd
but it
go
was
and shop
amazing.
at we'd go and shop at Benetton and like Body Shop, rest its soul. You know, we'd just go and buy stuff for the sake of buying stuff, and then wonder why we had no money left. And then when I started working and I had my own money, I was like, oh well, it's just the norm to go to town and spend it. So for me, spending money was just the thing.
You had the same life as me. That's what I did every Saturday with my mum. And I've got to be honest, they were beautiful memories. You know, we had a route
Yeah,
that went round town, we had a brilliant thing. And I sometimes think, oh God, I miss that social, you know, you don't do that. But it was a lot of money. And at the time, I remember I wasn't even spending my own, I was spending my mum's. I was like her doll. She loved buying clothes for me, like dressing me up
yeah.
almost. But then I tell you what caught me out, and this makes me sound like a real loser. I lived at home with my mum. I was a bank manager. My mum's my best friend. You know, like if I could live with her now, I would. Um,
No,
she is amazing. Lived at home with my mum. I owned two properties that I rented out, but because I was a bank manager, I got them on the most ridiculous interest rates, and like 0.5%.
nice.
It was a I just but I needed to learn this lesson before I did all this. So I just wasted the money. Just
Mm,
literally wasted it. And then what happened was I moved to London, literally from my mum's to London. Tell me about it. Had no clue. Never lived outside of the house. Never paid any bills. If I paid a board, she'd give it me back at Christmas, as if I'd done a savings club.
oh,
And I
that's
thought,
cute.
yeah, but I earned it is cute, but equally, I earned at that time, this was back in whenever, earned 40 grand, which was a bit of money for Doncaster
Yeah.
in 20 odd years ago. I moved to London on the same job, the same salary, 40 grand. And I
Mm,
was like, I didn't get it. And I moved in with my boyfriend, split up with him, and this is the kicker. And I still ended up moving into a flat that my friends let me at a cheaper rate. So it still wasn't, you know, as expensive. It was. I mean, it took all, and I got my first gas bill
oh
in the
God.
summer. And it was, and I'd not cooked because I'd gone out every night because I lived the London life. I'd not had any heating on because it was London. It was warm, and and I got a
Yeah.
bill for £360 for the summer.
Mm,
And I rang up and I went, you must have this wrong because I've not even used any. And they were like, that's the standing charge.
yeah.
Like, what's that? I remember ringing my mum up, going, you should have kicked me out at 16. You were too good to me. I didn't know this is how adults had to live. I was in my
Oh,
30s.
it's hard, isn't it? I mean, we've kind of jumped ahead here because like the question that I normally ask people on the
Sorry,
show is, what's your money story? But we're kind of in there.
it's my
We're in
money
there
story.
already.
I mean,
So,
that is one side of my money story, but just to give you, and I'll do this really quickly because I know I can rattle on. My other side of the story is, I came as a child. We had good money. We had boats. We went, you know, to the coast at the weekend. My dad would scuba dive. We were, you know, that
ooh,
was our, yeah, that was our
you're
growing
probably
up.
the first person that I've ever had on the podcast who hasn't had a really rough childhood, which is great, but also
It
like,
changed though. That was up to a certain point, and then my
uh,
parents divorced. So, and my dad took all the earning capacity with him, and
yeah.
he was a policeman, took all the pensions, took all that. And I remember, I know it sounds a really silly thing because this stuck in my head at 8 years old, us not having Bupa cover anymore. I know that sounds
Ah,
really stupid. I remember like we don't have medical cover any. We don't. So if we need anything, you know, oh my God, we'd have to go
you'd
to the
have to go to the
NHS.
NHS. Oh
I,
gosh.
to be fair, I didn't even know what the NHS was. I just knew that we had this cover, and I overheard a conversation when I was about 10, and I was like, we don't have that anymore because that's gone. That's so he took all that stuff with it. It felt like we'd lost all our safety because he'd gone.
Yes, yeah.
Take it. That's how it felt. And I was quite sick because I had kidney problems as a child. So I was like, and always used the NHS, by the way. So we didn't even use the medical cover. But I was like, oh. And obviously the house, we moved into this house, and it was a ramshackle of a house. We had left our bigger house, and my mum we had to go and clean it. And my mum didn't drive at the time because my dad had controlled her in lots of ways that we didn't know
Mm,
about at the time, but later found out. And we had to go and clean. And I remember us walking into this house, and it was black. Like they'd used part of the room as a coal house. And
oh
we looked,
wow.
yeah, and we sort of, so I mean literally black.
Oh,
And we like looked around it, not moldy though, just and remember looking at my mum, and she was so trying to be proud. And I was like, got this. In my head, I just said, I've got this. And we sang and we were silly. And we fixed that house, me, my sister, my mum, my grandparents came down. and I'd never been happier.
Oh,
And my dad, who was always angry and always worked up and had been having an affair, so was probably feeling guilty and took, we just sensed this weirdness with him, had gone. And we saw him every now and again. He didn't pay my mum much, and life was good. Now, I think that's my money story problem, because I had money and we did all this stuff, but we were always a bit anxious and we didn't know why. And then we had no money and we were happy. And
it's yeah,
I think
money
that
doesn't
messed
buy
me up.
happiness.
No,
Mm,
it doesn't. But it also, I think this is the money mindset that I had to break. Money also doesn't bring unhappiness. The money didn't bring the unhappiness. My
it was the
mum and dad's
situation.
unhappy relationship brought the unhappiness that I, as an empath and as a very highly sensitive child, I didn't know.
Mm,
I think I've told you I've been diagnosed autistic. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew people were unhappy, and I couldn't. And I did it. Is it me? Is it what? Do people not like me? All this type of stuff bottled up in it, and it was just them trying to hold their shit together. But
yeah,
actually, I've had to work, you said about you working on your mindset. I've had to work on my money mindset, that money is not a problem, because I have earned a lot of money in my career and got rid of it all and got into £50,000 worth of debt. So I used to be on
mm,
230 grand. I can make money, I get rid of it. And so I've had to work on the whole mindset of money isn't going to bring you unhappiness, Cheryl. You can trust money. It wasn't
yeah,
money that was the problem, it was the situation. So we can, as children, we can translate things into very odd ways. But this is the thing, it's the consciousness of that, like we said earlier, and then going, how do I want to be different and what can I do about that?
yeah,
And that's what I did.
absolutely. And it's weird actually that you say that, because I've recently had kind of a same penny drop moment. I had lots and lots of trouble with my last business, and I realized about 6 months ago that I was keeping myself small so I didn't earn lots of money because the money bought the trouble. And it's exactly the same. And now I've realized that, and I'm like, right, okay, let's sort this out, because it wasn't the money that brought the trouble, it was the situation that brought the trouble. And that's the thing. Situation and money are very, very different things.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting that we both had that experience, because that's been one of my biggest things to break. I've had hypnosis for it, I've had therapy for it, where I've conflated two situations, because children do that, and I'm trying to separate them and actually remind myself. And I think I've told you I'm a psychotherapist in training. So I'm doing what they call parts work to try and talk to that child inside me, and in inner child work, and say, it's safe for you to be successful.
Yeah.
It's really safe for you to be incredibly, wildly successful and wealthy. And when you win, that lottery advert where it says, who wins if you win?
Yes. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my life. If I'm wealthy, we're all wealthy. And not because I'll now throw it away like I did before and get rid of it, but because I will do good things with money. I will do
Yeah.
such good things, and people will be better off because I'm better off. So
And
now I'm
that's,
like,
yeah,
it's a big deal.
that's such a good money mindset thing to have. The more money you make, the more good you can do in the world. Like, I tell myself this all the time, and I think, yes, that's the path that I want to be on. Because I'm not that materialistic, really. I want a new house, but that's only because I've lived in this house for 10 years now. It's a two up, two down. The kids are sharing a bedroom. Soon that's going to be illegal. So, I think I want to separate them. I mean, even now, I want to separate them, because like they're 8 and 5 and they fight like something else. Like, I
But that
just
makes
think,
sense, doesn't it? Because
oh, yeah,
with my stepchildren, they didn't share a room here, but at the home that we have, so we have a house that it's ours, and then their mum, my partner's ex, lives in it. And it's because we just wanted them to not have to leave their home, and we wanted them
mm,
to not have to worry about, basically not worry about money. But then for a period of time, she met another guy and he'd moved in and he brought his child. So my stepchildren were sharing a room, and I was really unhappy about it because it was over lockdown. They're a boy and a girl. Um, and my stepson, I think, is probably autistic.
mm,
But it doesn't impact him, so we've not done anything about it. It's not harming him in any way, so why care, in a sense? But it was over lockdown, and I remember him saying to me, "I'm just really angry, Cheryl." He's a very gentle boy. He said, "I'm just really angry," and I was like, "Why? And who at? And tell me more about that." And he was like, and it was at his sister, and I thought, well, he can't get away from her.
No.
He just can't get, and he wants his own space. So we then said we'll convert the garage at my ex's house because we just want him to have his own boundaries and space. And I mean, bear in mind he was older
Yeah.
than children are, so
Oh,
it's
but do you know what? Even saying that, Ben's got ADHD. And he I mean, when I had my ADHD assessment, they said to me that they thought I was autistic as well. And I was just like, no, no. And I just kind of brushed it off. I thought, no, no, that's not me. But then the more I think about it, the more I think I do things very strangely. And actually, not strangely, but just like I'm quirky and I'm very sensory. I'm very emotionally led. My and I always just thought that that's an ADHD thing, but it could be an
huge
autism
overlap
thing.
between them.
There is.
Yeah, it's huge
And
overlap.
actually with emotional regulation and anger, Ben does have problems with his anger at times. And he will like clench his fists and go like
Hmm.
shaky over the smallest things. And
Most
Harriet's
things
the
to
same
do.
actually.
Yeah.
Both of them are. They are
I
actually and
That's how I was as a child. I used to put my hands on my head here and I'd be so angry. And when I'd take my hands away, I'd have like
nail
my
prints.
nails, yeah. And I
Yeah.
would do this, and I'm not a violent person. In fact, violence really upsets me. I can't watch, like films where there's punching or shouting.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, I can't watch this. I can't. It really, and I can't understand people who can watch it. Like people that can sit and watch a horror film or even
I
just a
hate horror
shouty
films.
film. Yeah, I'm like, why are they shouting? Why? And it starts to hurt my chest. And I've
Mm,
always thought the word. You see, I must have been born with an intense confidence in myself because I just think the world's broken and I'm normal. Because I just like, how do people watch these films and cope with it? And if I watch a film like that or a sad film, we have to put a comedy on afterwards because if I go to bed, I will then dream about it and I'll sleepwalk
yeah.
and anger, and so I get it.
I watched Breathtaking last week. The
Started it, stopped it.
oh my God. Like I mean I couldn't stop watching it because I was like, if I stop watching it, I'm kind of admitting defeat. But I cried the whole way through it.
Yeah.
And afterwards, yeah, had to watch a comedy because I was traumatized by the fact that it was actually something had happened and it was real life.
I
And it
am
was
going to
so
watch it.
horrible.
Yeah, I started it and then realized what it was and thought I can't, or I knew what it was, but what it was. And I thought I can't watch this at this moment, and then I'll need to prepare to watch it in the right environment. So when I finish it, I've got space to do something else. Because if I, it'll,
Yes.
and same with that police thing. My sister watched it. What's it called? There's a program about basically police complaints, and I
Oh yeah.
started to watch that and I was like, I can't watch it because I'll be angry. And then it consumes me. So I have to really manage emotions, not suppress, not avoid, because I did that for a long time in life just to be successful and manage. And it's the unhealthiest thing we can do to sidestep our emotions. We're human,
Mm,
we're meant to feel them, not avoid them. But I have to manage when I feel them. So I've got enough time then to process them so they don't
yeah.
plague me afterwards. So it's a more of an emotional management than anything else. But I will watch them. Ooh.
Yeah. I mean it's so hard hitting because of the horrible decisions that they had to make. And anybody who tells me that the NHS doesn't need a pay rise after watching that, just get in the bin.
See, what
Um,
devastates me with that as well is when they all went on strike, we should have all gone on strike with them.
yes,
We shouldn't have
yeah.
drove past them, or we shouldn't have carried on working. And I actually want us to get back to this. I think if the doctors go on strike again, because I know the junior doctors have been talking about it still, if they go on strike, I am going to go with them and say
With
I'm
our
nothing to do
pots
with
and
what you do.
pans,
Yeah.
like we did in lockdown, going out and clapping with our pots and
That's
pans. That's
our
what we need.
NHS. That's
Yeah,
ours. And same with the teachers, though. Like I don't have to be a teacher or have children to care about that. I think there's a real
yes.
perception that you have to have some connection to have empathy for it. These are human beings that are being
Mm,
rinsed by us, and we need to turn up. We have to accept, we have to pay for it. The pay rise they're getting comes out of all of our pockets, but by God, it's worth it.
yeah, but I'd rather we paid the NHS than we paid Rishi bloody
Politicians,
Sunak to go
oh,
and
don't,
like
I mean, you
have
could get me on
come
a
on.
big soapbox here.
Oh yeah, I'd
I
rather we did
hate big
that.
stories.
because yeah, I mean, I do too, but I mean, like, I would much rather that we gave the NHS a pay rise, and actually, because it will come back to us, it will benefit us. We all have to go to hospital at some point. We've all, I mean, even during lockdown, I dislocated my shoulder. Um, I would never actually say that it was fun, but it was 6 weeks into lockdown,
Mm.
and I dislocated my shoulder, and I actually got to talk to humans. And
Yeah,
I was like, my arm like hanging out of its socket, being
yeah.
like, "Ah, it's so nice to see you guys. You're doing an amazing job."
Thank you very much.
Um,
Good job, good job.
yeah, it was, and I went to two different hospitals. It was almost like the best day of my life, because I went on like two outings.
It shows how bad it was that we were not, seeing people.
Yeah. I mean, and would you believe what I did? It was because I was being lazy. I had to get, because I had two kids on my own during lockdown. I had a stair gate which I put on because my daughter had just started walking. She'd literally just turned 1. So I put a stair gate on the living room so I could kind of use it as like a bit of a cage. Because I was like, I can't have her like going
That
up and down the stairs 20
makes
times a day.
sense.
It was, oh, it's horrible. So I put this stair gate on, and instead of opening it, I used to climb over it. And I was I had a picture in my hand. I can't remember, like, I think Ben, with his ADHD legs, he likes to do handstands.
Yeah.
And he'd done a handstand and he'd smashed the glass on this picture frame. So I was trying to remove it really fast. So I was like throwing it, and I was trying to climb over at the same time. And the picture went that way. I went that way, and my arm went that way. And
Not good
it
at all
so
that.
lucky, oh my God, so luckily, because my husband was working away during lockdown. So luckily he was on his way home. So I phoned him, and I luckily he was coming home early as well, because I was phoning him to say, you need to come home because I think I've done something really bad. And he was about 5 minutes away. He was like, I'll be there, and he came home to my, like, literally my arm dangling out of his socket, and he put it back in, and I'm like, ugh.
Put it
Um,
back in.
yeah,
How did you do it? I couldn't have let him do that.
I don't know how, like, I don't know what happened. I had so much adrenaline going. I was just like,
Well,
he
that's not.
said, you can't get, he was like, you can't go to hospital with it hanging out like that. And he was just like, because he used to be a rugby player. He was like, I've done it before, I'll do it again. So he put it back in.
So yeah, at least he
Um,
had form. He had previous form popping them back.
yeah. And to be fair, once he put it back in again, it hurt a lot less. So I was quite happy with the fact that but it was he was like, bite on this. He said, made me bite on a belt. Like, just remembering the whole thing, it was horrible. But I went to one hospital. They were like, "Yeah, you dislocated your shoulder there." I'm like, "Yeah, you think?" And they were like, "Yeah, we can't do X-rays here because the machine's in the other part of the hospital where the COVID ward is." And I was like, "Oh." So they were like, "Go to another hospital." So I had to get a taxi to another hospital.
Oh, that's not for me.
Anyway, we digressed a little bit.
Him.
But yeah. So how did you get to where you are career-wise now?
Don't know in a lot of ways. I mean, I do know. I always just made sure I loved what I did. So even working within banking, and like I say, that was an accident. No intention to be a bank manager, but I love humans. I love exploring. I love building things. I love learning
Mm,
things. And so I've always just done that. And I've always been a very, I think it's just stereotypically northern, but I've always been very honest and straightforward. So I don't bullshit people.
no.
I don't say what you want to hear because that's what you want to hear and make things nice and pretty. But I'm not cruel either. So if something needs doing or saying or dealing with or moving, that's what I do. And
Yeah.
uh, and it's just always served me really well. It's just got promoted, and I won't tolerate things like misogyny and unequal pay. So
Mm,
I always go in and say, this is what I'm worth. This, and I'm a bit of a gambler as well. I said I was a risk manager, so I'm
yeah.
not willing to. I'm not afraid. I was. If someone said to me, "What's your biggest fear?" I'd say of being afraid, which is a paradox in itself. I have a fear of being afraid of things. So if something makes me afraid, I do it, face it. And one of the
Yeah.
things so if somebody said to me, "Oh, we can't pay you that," or "We can't give you that promotion," and it was unfair because I have a real rejection of unfairness. So if something's wrong, I can't accept that.
Have you
Injustice.
got ADHD as well as autism?
I'm waiting to be attested for that. They said I had
Okay.
ADHD tendencies, and I challenged back and said, I think you're wrong. Because I went in thinking I had ADHD, and told them I had ADHD, and they said, no, you have ADHD tendencies, but you've got autism. And I was like, no, I don't. I have, oh, that's not true. I went, yeah, okay, accept that, but I have ADHD, because everything I'd read about ADHD just seemed like it fit.
Yeah. Because
Um,
what that is, from an ADHD perspective, and I'm kind of the opposite. So yeah, for me, I knew I had ADHD, didn't think I had autism. They said I had autism. I was like, no, I don't. And now I've come away going, oh damn it, I probably should have pushed for that, because actually I think I do. But justice sensitivity. So justice sensitivity is basically where you have like an over heightened sense of justice. So if something happens and it's wrong, and you know it's wrong, and morally you have to fight for that, you get
that's my
incredibly
life.
angry, and you basically go on your high horse and you're like, nope, this is what's right.
And that is my life. So I've said that autism is why I was an incredible leader. I probably should neutralize it and say neurodiversity, because I do think I still have ADHD, and like I say, I'm waiting to be tested, because wouldn't accept their diagnosis. As I think my autism, depending upon what's happening in my world, masks my ADHD, and
They are,
my,
yeah,
if it depends when you get me, if that makes sense. It depends in life what's happening, because one will take the lead over the other. I
yeah,
think I'm everyday ADHD, and when I'm under incredible pressure, I'm autistic. So my
yes,
autism bit kicks in and goes, we need to build a system. We need things to be right. We need to, too much sound, too much noise, and it shuts things down for me. ADHD goes, what? And we
they
go
are.
places.
Mm,
They're
they're a weird
complementary for
thing.
me. They're
Yeah.
wonderful. But what I would say on that, I think autism helped me build processes. So send me into a business and I can build a process, I can build a system, I can understand human behavior.
Can you come
Like,
into mine and build all my processes? Because I fucking
yeah, I
hate
would love it.
processes.
Yeah, I love it. And that's the thing. I'm not that stereotypical. They say about people with ADHD or autism, they might struggle with things like bills. Not me. I was the opposite,
Mm,
because it was a process. It was a system that I had to put in,
yeah.
and I get a kick out of that. I'm like, I love it. So I
Yeah,
love.
so I'm the same with budgeting, because I know how to create a budget, and I am very flexible with my budget. So it's not, it's not really rigid and regimented. I've got the things in my budget that actually bring me joy as well. I love my budget, and I now that that system is set up, brilliant.
It
It's the
flows.
setting up of a system. I like using systems. It's the setting up that I'm like, no, I can't do that.
And that's the thing, you see. So I think it's about questioning things. So what are you looking to get from it? What's not working so far? What has worked for you? If you could have a perfect world, what would it be? It's almost like, and that's my coach. That's the coaching coming out of me.
Yeah,
Let's try and understand what a perfect week would look like for you. Let's drill it down to a day, an hour, a minute. So one, but you need someone to. You can't. It's really hard to do that on your own. It's best to do that with someone and
yeah,
have a conversation. So but that's why I think my career worked, because of my ADHD tendencies, which was the injustice. So if I saw someone getting bullied at work, which I did in financial services, it's rife
mm,
for sexual harassment, bullying. I got sexually assaulted at work numerous times. I got
oh,
bullied.
crikey.
It's just part of the course and it's horrific. But I would not tolerate that happening to someone else. So if I saw it happening, like if I saw something happening on the street right now, I'd hang up and I'd go to that and I'd deal with it, because I
Yeah,
cannot stand. And I was bullied really badly at school, and I promised myself I would never allow somebody to stand. People let me get really badly beaten up, assaulted, attacked at school. And I said I would never look the other way. I would never let
mm,
anyone feel alone like I felt alone back then. So
yeah,
I've kept that promise. I'm 43 years old now. I got bullied when I was in probably 13, 14. I've kept that promise every day of my life. And I'll keep that promise every day of my life till I die. But I take that into the workplace. So if and I don't mean bullying has to be horrific. If I see somebody doesn't understand something at work and they daren't ask, or if somebody is just not part of the in crowd, there's always that clique. It's never been me, by the way. I've never been wanted to, people have wanted me to be in it, but I'm not interested. I like the weirdos because I'm a weirdo. So
yeah. Me too. Me too. I think my best friend in my corporate career, I'm still friends with him now. A chap called Ryan. He looked a bit like a very small Harry Potter. Like one of the best people that I know. Like kind heart, quirky, does karaoke, likes to sing, he's in a band. Like nobody liked me and Ryan in my career. Like, we were we were the outcasts, but we got on really well together, and we're still friends now. Whereas the people who there were so many horrible, horrible people in my corporate world. Like,
And there
looking
is.
back at it, it's all because of my ADHD. So people would take the mick out of me. So I worked in recruitment, and the rejection sensitivity dysphoria with recruitment is horrific. Like,
Mm.
people would like I'd cry if like somebody didn't turn up to a job interview, or I would cry if like a client went with somebody else. That's got nothing to do with me. Like, I just sent the people for the bloody interviews. But nope, I took it personally and I cried. If anybody told me that I wasn't doing a very good job, I'd get really upset about it. I'd go into the office and I would completely overshare, like, things, just because I was trying to fit in, and I never ever fitted in. And the more I overshared, the worse it was. And that's the whole reason behind why I decided to do my neurodiversity in the workplace training, because I wanted to support
Needed.
other neurodivergents and help them to not have that, because it's really difficult.
It's really funny you say that, because I think there's more autistic, significantly senior leaders than we realize.
Mm,
Because I have the rejection sensitivity. I definitely have it, but I don't have it in the workplace. And it's a really weird one. So I think people don't like me personally. That's my thing. I think people just don't like who you are as a female, as a woman, as a human,
mm,
Cheryl. Just don't like you. Because I was picked on so much when I was younger. It makes logical sense to me. Well, people just don't like you then.
yeah.
They picked on me for exactly the opposite reason. Because I all the way through school, I was the captain of every team. I was the captain of debating classes. I was that person, captain, head of the sixth form, popular. Didn't want any of that, by the way. I wasn't interested.
Mm,
I used to go running at lunchtime because I just liked the alone running. I was very sporting, but liked my own space for it. Boys liked me because I had boobs, and long straight hair quite early. I was terrified of it all. I didn't know. I
yeah.
remember the boys would scream things at me. They'd come and watch me run over the finish line because my boobs. Hated it. But
Mm,
and I was popular, but actually that's what I got picked on for because I was interested in nobody. None of them, I didn't care about any of them, but they were interested in me. So then they'd be like, oh, she's stuck up. She thinks she's too good for everyone. I'm like, so people always wanted me to be in their gang, and they did at work as well. But I liked the person that sat in the corner, didn't even give me eye contact. That guy over
yeah.
there who hasn't looked at me. And I'd go and go, and I was always a boss, bear in mind. So I was boss so I'd go over and like, what are you doing over here? And I remember they'd be like this and not want to give me eye contact. I'm like, me? Like, yeah, yeah, what are you doing? I'm just working on this table. And I'm like, can I see can I learn from you? And like, you want to sit with me? And honestly, it used to,
Yeah.
they were my people. And I'd build networks with them because they weren't, the thing is about being in leadership as well. It's quite leadership's a really interesting thing. And I always say you should not give leadership, the human race is fucked up by power and money, by a
Yeah.
breath of power and money. So we have the wrong people with power and money in their hands. Actually, we need to flip the world upside down and give the vulnerable people, I'm not going to get political, but I think you may have seen that I support Palestine. If you give the Palestinians all the power and money in the world, they do good things with it because they've been
Absolutely.
treated
Yeah.
so badly. And I think that's why I say we need to turn this upside down. So and I think you should have lots and lots of training before you become a leader because I had in my control to have sacked so many people. I could sack a whole workforce if I wanted to. I could
Yeah.
change people's lives, or I could create hundreds of jobs if I wanted to. I had power over people. So I had to take that seriously. Think
Mm,
what I could do. I had to care. So I couldn't just make knee-jerk decisions. I couldn't be rude. I had to do the right thing for the right reasons and be able to show my workings out, be able to say, this is why I made this decision. So for me, I always say you can tell new money and you can tell new power because they get drunk on it. There's influencers on our LinkedIn profiles that you and I will know where they are power drunk right now and full of their own self-importance.
oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And it'll never be me. I'll be the guy you never saw coming because you just get on with your stuff. I could be
I just think, like,
yeah,
I like to keep it real. I'm not materialistic. When I started to make more money, I was just like, great, I can invest in the app and give more money away to people. I didn't really think about me personally. I was just like, oh, great.
I
Um,
actually always think about you, just for the record, but I get,
yes,
I get what
yeah,
you're
no,
saying
and
about
I do.
materialistic, but take care. You have. I've always said from being a very young age, there's nothing wrong with being selfish. It's how you're selfish. So people
Yes,
demonize the word being selfish, like you're such a selfish person. I've tried to reframe that word, and I'm like, I'm doing my best to be totally selfish, because when I take care of me, that means I'm better prepared to take care of you.
yes, so true, so true.
And that's, I'm just
Um,
trying to reframe it. By the
yeah.
way, I'm just mindful because I can chat all
No,
day.
it's fine. I'll close you down if I need to. We're all good.
All I
We're all
was going
good.
to say is, do you want me to tell you some of the stories about language
Yes,
vulnerability with financial services?
yes, please. Yes, that would
Sorry,
be
because I
amazing.
will just rattle on. So when we first sort of talked about this, we said we were going to talk about people that are in a financial difficult situation, and I was saying it's certain words, certain language, what you need to do, and how this first I started to see this was when my friends were having financial difficulty, and I'll talk about one friend in particular, and she earned good money, but her partner basically caused them, without her realizing it, lots of debt in the background. So she's paying the bills. Sorry, she's paying for their son and all this, and he paid all the bills. Unbeknown to her, he wasn't paying any of the bills.
Oh
Then
God.
they split up. And the first thing me and her are talking in the pub, she split up with him, devastated. And she said, I need to sort of deal with a mortgage, take him off that, blah, blah. And I said, look, she was upset. So I said, I'll deal with it. She put me on the phone. And they said, we're transferring you to the collections department. And it was an automated, put her account
Mm,
number in. And I went, are you in arrears on your mortgage? And she was like, absolutely not. And she's getting transferred to collections, not even talking to her. And I went, I think you are, babes. I said, don't. And she was like, we're not, Cheryl. Anyway, they put me through. They were about to get repossessed. They'd been sending letters out. He'd been
oh my
intercepting the
God.
letters. So I had this conversation with them. I said, look, I'll put you on to my friend. She's going to give you permission to speak to me because she's far too broken by this. This is all
Yeah,
news to me.
yeah.
I've just broken it to her that she's in arrears. And so they gave all that, put her on the phone to me, because I said to her, I'll deal with this as a professional. So
Mm,
I said to them, I need to tell you the context. And this is what I said to the people on the phone. I said, and I need you to listen to what I'm telling you. I know you've got lots of things on. I know you're busy. You're going to go over your call time here because they've all got, these people, they're 20-year-old kids that are in university,
yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah.
care about your situation, which is, by the way, in my career, I've complained about this and I've
Mm,
built programs to remediate this. We shouldn't be having inexperienced people dealing with debt. People die by suicide. I need to correct myself. People die by suicide because of debt. It's happened
yeah,
on my watch where I've had to
yes.
deal with that. So I said, we have to have the right people answering the phone. So I said to them, I basically said, you need to prepare to be sat here and listen. I need you to be making notes. This is significant. This could be life loss or life changing if you don't get this right. So I
Yeah.
almost said to them, be warned, get ready. Sorry, my dog's going to jump all over. So someone's just knocked at the door, but it will. If you hear a dog bark, it's mine.
We're all good.
She's right here. That's why I'm pointing to her. She's sort of sat listening to the
Hello,
dog.
doggy.
So first of all, so I gave them context. So I gave them a warning, told them to get ready, told them they were going to breach their call time. Said to them to get notes, blah blah blah. And then I said, this is the context of where we're at right now, and I told them a story. I didn't get emotional. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. Didn't do anything that ever. Because bear in mind, it wasn't my situation, even though I was still upset. My friend would
Yeah,
have lost her shit. So I
yeah.
calmed it all down, and I said, "Do you need me to stop whilst you make a note of that?" So I basically managed this person. Then when it got to the situation about what's going to happen now, they said they were basically going to take the house off her, repossess her. And I said, the challenge you've got is I am consciously telling you that she hasn't received any of your communication because he was in the house intercepting the letters. He's no longer in the house. So
Mm,
actually, by rights, you need to start that process again because she
yes, yeah.
hasn't received any of your communication. And I've told you about a problem that existed that's now been removed. So now you need to, I basically said you need to make sure she gets all the letters that went before with all the right time scales. So if you're waiting 4 weeks between letters, you need to wait 4 weeks again. You need to pause the repossession. So, and they were like, right. So I was telling them how to manage it. Now, someone layman on the street wouldn't have known that. But
No.
financial services regulation tells you that you have to have fair communication.
Yes.
It has to be reasonable. Now, they are reasonably expected that you would have answered, you got your letters. That's fair. But when you tell them that you haven't, they have to go with that. They can't go, you're
Yeah.
lying. So if you say to them, I didn't receive any of these letters, there must be some issue. Somebody must be, and in our case, we knew it was him. I said, I'm going to speak to citizens and advice. I said, this is putting undue anxiety and stress on her. She's a physical and mental risk to herself because of this. Not only is her house being repossessed where her child lives, her partner's being lying to her. Think about the emotional overload she's going.
Yeah.
How can you help us? So they said, I said, this is what I want you to do. They said, right, we're going to do that. They started all of it again. In that time, I went and told him to sell his car, and I said, if we can pay chunks off it, is that okay? I said, and if she can't, because I can't promise that, so promise the bare minimum, what is it that we can do and by when? And so it was telling them about the emotional vulnerability, that they
Yeah.
had processes that hadn't been followed, because they have to follow the financial services, the FCA's processes. They have to. And right now we're going into consumer duty. I don't know if you're
Yeah.
following it. Yeah. So consumer duty means we're not just fair to our customers, which has been historically what we've had for decades. Banks must be fair to customers. Now banks must be good to customers. They must create good outcomes, and they must be able to evidence that they've done that. If they
Yes.
can't, then they can't do it. So the regulation is there to protect us. So what if any of your people that are listening to this have got any level of debt, the first thing we need to say is everybody on the street's got debt. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
normalize it. I'm not trying to make it not a big problem, but we need to get rid of the shame and the stigma. So everybody
Absolutely.
has
Yeah.
debt, and debt can actually be really helpful, right kinds of debt. And I've been in debt where I actually didn't think I couldn't pay the money each month, and I felt sick, and I thought, I can't wake up, I can't do this. Nobody knew. I was still, people would have thought Cheryl's living a brilliant life. Look at her, she's happy, she's successful, she's got a great job. I was carrying that burden with me.
Yeah.
The second I decided, and it was actually Bob Proctor. I don't know if you ever watch any of
Yes.
Traction. And it was in the Secret. He was like, get a debt plan, do whatever, let go of the shame, let go of the guilt, get it, do a process, but let it go. Because the problem we've got as humans is we carry darkness around with us, where we go, I'm a bad person.
Yeah, we do. I mean, and the one caveat that I will say on that, if you're going to go for a debt management plan, or you're going to go for bankruptcy or an IVA or any of
I
those
didn't mean
things,
that, by the
make
way, but yeah.
sure that you understand it, because there are credit, it will be a risk on your credit file, a risk on future lending, and all of that kind
By
of
the
thing.
way, that is the worst there's nothing else
Yes.
to do in life to do that. So I would never support that. And certainly because I worked in financial services, I had to protect my credit at all costs. Otherwise I
Yeah.
couldn't
Well, I mean, this is
go.
the thing. So when I was in the peak of my debt, I was working for a financial recruitment agency.
And you
I
should
could not work for any banking clients. Like, it was the shame on that. It was like a call had come in, it'd be one of my clients, and I'd have to give it to somebody else because I wasn't allowed to work on those clients. It was horrific. Like,
that I couldn't have done my job had I missed
mm,
one payment. So
yeah,
I'm the person that checks her credit file, and with all my friends I go, and this is another thing to tell anybody listening to this as well. That same friend, I said, look, I want to check your credit file. And she was like, why? I went, get it done. Exactly. So we
yeah,
logged onto it. She'd never logged on before. I set her up a file. We found the amount of things. She was a forgetful payer, let's call it that way. So she'd forget and then pay next time. And I was like, and she had the money. So I was like, we need to set
mm,
up a minimum order direct debit. So it just takes the minimum. It's
yeah,
because you're going to mess up your credit file. I wrote to all of her where she had small bits of money, we paid bits off, and and there were things on there that were there by mistake that she just didn't know about. I got rid of them, got them removed. Like within a month, they were gone. I rang up to others and said, explain the situation again. They took them off. So by the end I'd finished with this, she's just sat there watching Coronation Street, and I'm on the phone sending emails and doing stuff. By the end of it, it was all done. And I was like, and
yeah,
it's a big job. Like I did it because that's my job. That's what I used to do for people at work. So I get why when it's you, ask a friend, ask someone to body double with you.
Yeah,
Because often with these things, it's the, oh God, I've got to open an email and do this. Find somebody who you can just go, I'll send one email to one bank today and just say, I'm really struggling. I'm even struggling to talk to you. I need your most helpful, sensitive person who can help me through this. Hold my hands through this. If you ask for help, they have to give it
they do. And do you know what? It's like, so
legally.
when my business went under last year, like I was in a position where I was constantly shouting about the fact that I was debt free and I'd paid off my 40 grand's worth of debt and la la la, and it was already great. And then all of a sudden I was back in 40 grand's worth of debt again because of all the personal guarantees. And that was the lowest point in my existence. But then I thought about it and I thought, hang on, Maddie, you got out of debt before. You know how to talk to debt collectors. You know how to talk to these banking people now. Just do it. Just pick up the phone. No more hiding from the envelopes, even if it's a brown one. My daughter's got this thing now where she's like, Mummy, there's a brown envelope for you. I know you don't like the brown ones.
Mm.
But she always, she comes and brings them and we open them together. And then I'm like, oh, great. Okay. So that's this, which is a good thing because this morning I got this.
I don't know what that is. I can't see it properly. Tell
It's
us.
a parking ticket.
Oh.
But if I hadn't have opened that, I wouldn't have known I'd have had a parking ticket. And I went and checked because I always pay for my parking. So I went and checked on the Ringo app, and lo and behold, I'd paid for that session. So I've appealed it this morning, and I
Right.
made myself do it this morning when I opened that letter.
And
Um,
celebrate
and I
it.
and I also, because I check my bank account all the time, I also checked my bank account this morning because I knew that I had some access to work payments coming in for some of my clients, and they've underpaid me. So I phoned Access to Work this morning and I was like, hey guys, one of my clients has been underpaid. It turns out that she'd been allocated less money than she thought she had. So when she said she could work with me, she organized the lower rate than what I'm charging her. And I was like, oh, okay. So we've applied for an extension for her so that she gets a change of circumstances so they can pay me what I actually am owed.
That's the
But
right
it's
move. If you were afraid, you wouldn't have been able to.
no, no, and that is the thing. It's about getting the confidence. And when you're really, really low, it's hard to get that confidence, but they have to be nice to you. And if you ask them for a payment break, if you say, look, I can't afford to do it right now, can I have 3 months to get my stuff together? They have to say yes. So
And then in that time, you need to be self-challenging yourself to not be adding more to it.
absolutely,
I
yes.
think
Yeah.
you can make debt repayment and savings the other way. So once you get to zero, take the same approach as you had when you were in debt and save the money instead of paying it off your debt.
And that was what I did. That was what I did. Yeah. When I became debt free, I that was exactly what I did. I put all of the money that I'd saved from paying off my debts into a pot and I managed to buy a house within 2 years. Um,
And turn it into a game, I think. I
yes.
like a because of my weirdness, I don't like unequal numbers, so I like to round things up. So I have on my bank. Do you have roundups on your bank?
Yeah.
Because I hate seeing like £1.53. I'm like, don't like that. It's
Yeah.
messy. So because I have roundups and then I double the roundups and it goes into a savings account. So I never see it. All I see is when I pay for something for 80 pence or £5.90, it's normal. So when I look at my bank, I'm like, ooh, that's all neat and no penny
Mine
being.
is exactly the same. So I use Plum for that. I love Plum. Plum is the
Yeah.
most amazing thing ever. But I did say that I'd call you when we were on time.
And we're
We
on
are
time.
at time. But I don't think this is going to be the last time we get you on because I've really enjoyed this conversation. It has been a little sporadic, talking
Yeah,
about
but are we
different things, but it's
surprised?
no, no. And actually, I think this is one of the things that keeps people interested in this podcast. We chop and change all the time on what we're talking about. So it's always really good. Cheryl, where can people find you?
I am on Instagram, but on Instagram I'm only talking about Palestine. I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm very angry about Palestine at the minute. Well,
Not surprisingly, I'll follow you.
do you? Yes, I say a lot on there. But if it's about anything to do with this, I'm on LinkedIn, and I should know my LinkedIn handle. I think it's Management Mentor, Cheryl Thompson, Management Mentor, or Cheryl Thompson Coaching. And I
Amazing.
will always help anybody with any money issues. So if somebody says I don't know how to deal with this, I just care about this too much. So I
You
do
need to
my
come. You
coach.
need to come and hang out in my app a bit more.
Yeah, because I'm in your app. I've
Yes,
got
come
your
and
app and
hang
it's
out.
brilliant. But Yeah, I really care about, I think money has been demonized and we need to take the power back from it. And we need to take power back from the elite. The masses
Yes.
have more money and we can. And I'll just quickly say this and I'm going to go. Twice in my life, I've doubled my salary. Twice. So I went from 40 grand to 80 grand. And then I went from a few years later, 80 grand to 160 grand. And with nothing else but a change in my mindset.
Yeah.
So
Mindset is
talk
key
about
for
that
everything.
all day long. And I don't believe I'm a fluke. Whenever I decide I want more money in, I decide it and it comes in from
Yeah.
unexpected. So there's so much we can do on money
Let's
management
talk.
mindset.
Let's book you back in and we'll talk about money mindset next
Yeah,
time because I think it's really
love it.
important. Guys, make sure you download the Mad About Money app if you haven't already. You can come and talk wherever you are in your money journey, whether you're in debt, whether you're saving, whether you're trying to make more money. It will help you, especially if you are of the neurospicy variety. I just said neurospicy and I hate neurospicy. Ugh, I just made myself a little bit sick in my mouth. Anyway, if you are listening to this podcast on Spotify or Apple Music, please go and hit the subscribe button, give us a like, please share this with your friends. And if you want to be a guest, then hit me up because we're always looking for new guests as well. I'm Maddy Alexander-Grout. You can find me on LinkedIn at Maddy Alexander-Grout or on TikTok, Mad About Money Official. And we will see you guys next time.